Well, today's video is a request video, and I had a few people ask me, hey, can you do a video about those two wheel failures in the Paris-Roubaix, which were from the same team, Jumbo Visma? And I've got a few bits of information together. There's not a lot, so we'll see what we can come up with or what conclusions we can come up with. But before we jump into the video, I just want to thank Hambini for giving us a share and a shout out. And I really do admire Hambini as an engineer and a friend. And I think that we're kind of allies in this YouTube world. And I'd just like to say that I really appreciate his standing as an engineer. He puts the technology and everything before his own benefit, and he's not swayed by what his benefits are. He just says it as it is, and I really admire that. So let's roll the intro and let's get into why possibly could these wheels failed. Now, before we start any sort of analysis, we need to look at what information we've got. And I've got a little notepad that I made here so I didn't miss any. Now, of course, the team was Jumbo Visma, and 2 times wheels failed. So basically one failed on exactly the same bike as another bike, same wheel, everything, right? Now, the key points about these wheels were they were Shimano wheels. They were tubular rims. They were fitted with an Dugast 30mm tubular tyre. On both cases, the tyres were flat, so they were riding with the tyre flat on the rim, on the pave. Okay, so it's pretty strenuous type of treatment for the rim and the tyre. Last season's wheels, so these wheels they had on were 11 speed, and they were from last year, so they may have been kept in storage. We don't know how they were stored. Could have been in an environment where there was temperatures or a lot of moisture. We just don't know. And both wheels were the real wheels. Okay, so we've got the basic information that we've got there. Apart from that, there's not too much we can get. They didn't give us any footage before the wheel failed. We couldn't see what happened. If there were some other factors that may have contributed, all we saw was the bike was riding along and just see this wheel collapsing and the guys and his derailleur and everything just falling on the deck. So that's the only amount of info we can go by in this evaluation. So let's go through this one by one. Now, the first point I made before was it was a Shimano wheel. Now, I have seen Shimano wheels just fail before. This was many years ago. There was a wheel that was the Pro line of Shimano, which is just a subsidiary of Shimano. And one of these guys was in a team, a Pro was riding along, and the wheel just collapsed. He just failed. He went over the handlebars and whatever. And they said it was something to do with the grill in the road. But when you go through the video, it was nothing to do with the grill. The wheel just collapsed. There was nothing on the road there. And they tried to kind of make out that there was some other contributing factor. And even if it was a grid or some bump there, it could hardly be seen on the road. And it was nowhere near as severe as the pave that we saw that's in the Paris-Roubaix. The second thing was the tyre. Now, obviously the tyre had either failed or it had punctured because it was flat. We knew the tyre was flat on the rim when the bikes were riding along, and even the teams admitted this. They said the tyre was flat. So basically all we have is a thin bit of cotton material and the rim is directly on the pave. That's all we've got between the rim and the actual road surface, which is extremely rough. And if you saw the video, they were moving still fairly quickly on the bikes. They weren't, taking it easy. So that covers the tyre. Now, I've just mentioned it, in both cases, exactly both cases, the wheels were flat. The tyre was flat as I was riding over the pave. So they were experienced exactly the same forces or a similar type forces from the pave, that type of resonance that could have been happening, or the complete impact of hitting from one pave to the next. So that was consistent between the two bikes. The wheel was last season's wheel. Now, we don't really know how that wheel's been kept, if it's been kept in a place or how long it was used last year. We don't know. If it was used last year on the pave as well, we don't know if there's been any fatigue or corrosion that's been associated with the wheel, or it was wet and it was put away and it wasn't cleaned off. These sorts of things could have an impact on the wheel, and moisture, even with carbon, can cause some issues, but it could have also caused some corrosion with the spokes and the nipples and so forth, especially if they weren't brass, they're just aluminium nipples. They can corrode quite considerably. But even if that was the case, it would have only been a contributing factor because we could see the actual carbon completely collapse. So it was really the carbon that failed. We didn't actually see that there was any spokes, or maybe it happened so quickly that the spoke breaking contributed to the carbon then failing. So we don't really know. We're just speculating there. Now, the wheels were disc wheels. I forgot to mention that before. But with disc wheels, we do have extra forces going through them, because with a rim brake wheel, you only have cross-spoking forces going one way because of your pedaling action. And when you brake with a rim brake, you're not putting that force for the wheel. With a disc brake, you're getting forces both way. But I would like to really dismiss that, because we're not seeing that sort of problem on any other surface than on pave. It may have been a contributing factor, but I'd probably say it would have been a pretty small one, if any. Okay, both wheels were rear wheels, so the rear wheels have more weight over them, and they also contribute to more force on braking and drivetrain, and there's more cross braking and there's more offset and dishing in the wheel, which makes them weaker. So the rear wheel you could argue potentially is a weaker wheel, and also it would have been having more impact because the weight of the body would have been a higher percentage over the back wheel, and it would have had more significant buffeting on the pave. So in conclusion, what can we make of all of these bits of information that we know? And it's really quite limited, and it's very, very difficult to come to any real conclusion and speculate about why these wheels failed. Now, we can probably say, hey, look, there's Shimano wheels, and we've seen fails by Shimano before, and some people reckon that they're rubbish. Yeah, it could have been the Shimano wheel, could have been the brand, it could have been the wheels are not designed as strong as some other wheels. It could have been it was tubular. Some people might say, it's because it was a tubular rim, and the tubeless rims, they won the race, and a lot of the guys were on tubeless, and some of them running inserts, some of them running sealant. And yeah, it's because the tubeless is a much better technology than the tubular, and that's why the wheels failed. Or we could say, hey, look, you shouldn't ride rims on pave with a flat tyre. And I would probably have to point more towards that. I would say that the impact on the pave with the flat tyre, they just exceeded the design limit that Shimano had made these wheels for, and they just failed. They were probably never designed to be ridden with a flat tyre on pave. And I would probably put it down simply to, hey, look, you exceeded the design limit, and riding a flat tyre on pave was just too much for the wheel. And, people could even say, oh, look, it's disc brakes. But really, I don't think so. I think that even though disc brakes do put more forces through the spokes on the wheel when you're actually going forward, where you're pedaling, you're putting one force, you're cross-spoking force one way, and when you're braking, put it the other. I don't think in this situation it would have been a contributing factor. So, yeah, I would have to put it down to the wheels were not designed for that application. They exceeded the design criteria of those wheels, and they failed. And that's why we saw the same wheel in the same sort of situation both fail from the same brand or same batch of wheels. And even the fact it was 12 months old, yeah, we could argue how was it stored, was the carbon fatigued, how long had it been used last season, had it been used on the pave last year, all those sorts of things. Maybe there was some incipient fault, but I'd probably say no, because two sets of wheels did exactly the same thing. Well, anyway, guys, that's where I'm going to leave it. And remember to smash that like button. And if you like these sorts of videos, then remember to subscribe down below. And if you want to leave a comment, remember to leave your comments down below and give your opinion on what you think caused this wheel to fail and collapse, and we had two situations which were extremely similar. So obviously there's some relationship there. Well, anyway, guys, I'll see you next vid. Cheers.